Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Does anybody need to pull any items this evening? Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are going to start off with our student of distinction this evening.
Yes, we're very fortunate to partner with the Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES for many programs. Programs for students, programs for staff, professional learning, back-end business opportunities. And tonight we are going to hear from Lisa Hamill and other administrators and members of the PNW BOCES team, because one of our students, Samantha Queen, has been recognized as a student of distinction. So I'd like to invite Lisa up, who's going to introduce everyone.
Good evening, Superintendent Hochreiter, board members, staff, students, and families. My name is Lisa Hamill, the Director of Special Education for Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES, and I'm here tonight with our wonderful BOCES staff and our Assistant Superintendents, Dr. Lynn Allen, Mr. Louis Riolo, and from our Fox Meadow High School. It's grown, so sorry we're taking up so much space here tonight. But we do have our principal, Mr. Turnell Sims, teacher, Mr. Mike Colvin, clinician, Mr. Randy Hill, and other staff that are here on behalf of our BOCES. On behalf of our BOCES, I want to thank you for your outstanding partnership with us over many years. And I want to thank you for allowing us to honor your students, Miss Samantha Queen, with our Student of Distinction certificate. And now here to speak about Samantha, her lead teacher, Mr. Mike Colvin.
It's working.
Thanks for having us here tonight. I'm honored tonight to be able to speak about our student of distinction, Ms. Samantha Queen. No student on our campus is more deserving of this award given her growth socially, emotionally, academically during her time in our Fox Meadow High School program. As you can see from the number of members here from our PNW BOCES, including Mr. Sims, our current principal, our former principal, Dr. Janexi, who unfortunately could not be with us, but is with us in spirit. I convey that to you. And through the input I received to put this little speech together. Samantha is an unbelievably valued member of our school community. I could have easily put together a piece for this evening lauding Samantha with praise, but I did seek feedback from the rest of the staff just to fully encompass who she is as a student, a person, and a leader at our school. Many of the same adjectives were used to describe her: kind, thoughtful, helpful, compassionate, conscientious, warm, positive. The list could go on and on. Samantha consistently demonstrates her compassion for others, whether it's befriending and escorting new students around campus, advocating for peers, mediating conflicts utilizing her own personal experiences, speaking out against bullying, or even volunteering to organize campus food and clothing drives to benefit veterans. What makes Samantha different than others is her ability to not only navigate the social challenges of these actions, but to also influence and change the behaviors and mindset of her peers. This has resulted in positive changes within our school community. She is certainly regarded as a student leader amongst both students and staff. For me, and I get to witness this every day, her most important attribute is her ability to bring a smile to people's face. We all know that being able to smile and laugh is one of the most important ways to handle the challenges of life. From her sense of humor to her spectacular storytelling to her, as you'll hopefully see, infectious smile, she's able to brighten the most dreary of days. Samantha's expressed a desire to continue her education beyond high school in early childhood education, one in which she would have immense success given her skills and attributes. Regardless of if this changes, we at Fox Meadow know that her positive attitude and her desire to help others, she will find success on whatever path she chooses moving forward. Thank you for being here. Congratulations, Samantha.
So Samantha, this is the fun part. Here is your certificate identifying you as a student of distinction, and our school board president, Dr. Carol Hoplow-Abraham, will give you your medal.
Don't you? Don't worry.
Charles
Around this
Thompson.
table.
Congratulations.
So thank you for everybody from BOCES coming for this wonderful event. If you are interested in staying for the rest of the meeting, we welcome you. If you have other things you need to
I got my code, I'm out.
That was beautiful.
All right, so that brings us to our first audience comment section. This is the section for the hearing of the public on non-agenda items. To refresh your memory, the Hendrick Hudson Board of Education welcomes public comment at this portion of the meeting. To maintain an orderly meeting, the board has established the following guidelines for those wishing to address the board. Each speaker should have signed in with the district clerk prior to commenting. When called, each speaker should step up to the end of the desk and state their name and affiliation if applicable prior to starting their comments. Letters, petitions, or other written materials should be handed to the district clerk. Each speaker is permitted 3 minutes for their comments and must be recognized by the board president. All comments should be directed to the board president. The board will listen to comments but will not necessarily debate or discuss items and operational matters. What? Okay, operational matters. Well, we can still direct stuff to him afterwards. Operational matters will be directed to the school administrators for handling. The board is not permitted to address personnel or individual student matters in open session. The board might limit repetitive comments in order to give time to others who wish to speak. Excuse me, I'm getting tongue-tied. As well as to maintain meeting efficiency, and please, the board expects comments to be made without interference from the audience and in a civil manner. Are there any?
Yes. We have Kathleen Gillis. Hi there.
Welcome.
Kathleen Gillis, resident of Montrose. I'm showing with my medals from the town of Cortland 5K. Two very I am moving up in a division. It's my best chance for gold, and I am missing my training ground up at the track. I don't understand why it's still not open. I've corresponded with Mr. Hochreiter a number of times, and I understand there's ongoing security concerns about letting the public on the track. Never mind during school hours, but on weekends, this beautiful last week when school was closed, and I could be running all winter. I am running all winter, but I really would like to see the track open tomorrow. I don't know if you can address that. The other thing I wanted to comment about was school board elections and information for voters. I know it might seem out of the blue, but the last couple of times I've voted for school board members, I have not been able to get information on who is actually running. The last time I inquired, I was told there was a forum at the Hanhud Library, and I think maybe a third of the candidates were there. There was nothing written about this, or there was no information for voters that I could see. So I would like to see something perhaps online about what the candidate's affiliation is, what experiences or areas of expertise they might be bringing, something that you can become an informed voter when it comes to the Board of Ed members. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else this evening, Roseanne? Thank you very much. So our, are you ready for superintendent's report? Or do you want me to-
All right, Superintendent's report. I have a number of updates. One is the cessation fund. 2 weeks ago, I gave a presentation on the New York State Electric Generation Cessation Fund. This is a fund that New York State controls and operates as a grant for communities that have a closed power plant in their jurisdiction. And we sent out some information, put information online during the vacation last week, and we sent an email to all of our parents today. We'll send an email to staff because there's an opportunity to weigh in and advocate that New York State changed the way they fund the cessation fund. There's an amendment to the New York State Energy Plan that basically would create a different funding source, not one that is negotiated every year with politicians. And so we ask that you review that, and if you want to make a comment in support of the amendment, you do not need to be a district resident, you just have to be a resident of New York State. The cessation fund is for the entire state, not just Hendrick Hudson. But if this fund, or if this amendment goes through, New York State will absolutely 100% guarantee that our community, particularly our school district, will receive all of the cessation fund dollars that it has allotted to it or available to it under the guidance of the fund, which totals more than $63 million. Right now, we're entitled to $34 million. So this change in or amendment would change the funding stream, so we would receive $30 million more, which is going to be very valuable as we plan our long-term financial future after Indian Point. So please check that out and make a comment if you would like to. Today we celebrated our 100th day, if you can believe it. So we're 100 days down and 80 plus more to go. We had a number of fun activities that took place at the elementary schools that are on Facebook and on our website, so please check those out. Earlier tonight, one of the reasons the board was late is because we pushed back our executive session meeting, was a very important girls basketball game, and our girls basketball team will be heading to the sectional semifinals. They beat our crosstown rival Panis earlier tonight. Very nice for those girls. So they will play next Thursday at the county center at either 6:30 or 8:15. That time will be determined probably by the end of the week. And we have some other athletes that are participating in postseason. Yanni Schotman is one of our premier divers. He will be participating in the New York State Diving Championships on March 7th. And Beckett Herman is one of our wrestlers. He qualified for the state tournament, and he will head to Albany on Friday to participate. So we're proud of them, and they have been outstanding representatives of our district as student athletes. And lastly, many of you have heard about the coronavirus. We posted many different resources on our website today, and we had some recent developments even as of yesterday. So I have a statement I want to read because I think it's certainly germane to how schools are, to what schools can and can't do when addressing the virus with students. So yesterday, on February 25th, the director of the National Center for Immunization and Respiratory Diseases at the Center for Disease Control provided an update regarding the coronavirus that has been plaguing China and other parts of the world. Many school districts have faced questions from parents and staff regarding students and employees who may have traveled to these areas where the virus is more prevalent. Given that, we want to provide what public schools can do in the face of a potential outbreak. Students cannot be excluded from school or school activities based upon recent travel or their race or country of origin. As of February 2nd, a federal proclamation was ordered for screening protocols to be put in place for individuals traveling back to the United States from China at certain airports, including international airports that service the greater New York City area. Based upon screening, an individual may be compelled by a local health department to be quarantined. Without such order to be quarantined, the individual can return to work, and in the case of students, must be allowed to attend schools. Any quarantine order is to be sent directly to the school of the student by the CDC. If a school does have a student who has traveled in the last 14 days to an area where the coronavirus is prevalent, as defined by the CDC, and the student develops respiratory symptoms such as a cough, the school should advise the parents and guardians to immediately call the county health department. New York State education law provides a provision regarding a bar to attendance by students who have symptoms of a communicable or infectious disease that's reportable under New York State public health law, and those that provide a significant risk of infection. On February 1st, New York State added that the 2019 coronavirus to the list of communicable diseases that would trigger such an exclusion. The student would have had to travel to a CDC designated area in the last 14 days and then show signs of symptoms for the exclusion to be considered. If a student is excluded, the school has an obligation to provide home instruction. In the case of a student with an infectious disease, this can be done by sending work home electronically or by mail. We have implemented additional safeguards and safety nets within the district. Anthony, who we'll hear from later on his budget, has met with his custodian staff. He has met with all of the vendors that we purchase cleaning agents from. They have confirmed that the cleaning agents that we use district-wide are chemically sufficient enough to combat the coronavirus as well as the common cold and the flu. So we're very pleased with that. He has ordered the custodians to be extra vigilant in terms of their cleaning, in particular public places and on school buses. And so until we're advised further by the CDC or Department of Health, we believe we're in good shape. These protocols have been put in place for many decades, to address many different needs or different medical issues that have come about. So it's important to understand that the school district takes their marching orders from these medical agencies, that we're not entitled nor are we qualified to make up different protocols in this case. That New York State Department of Health and the CDC quarterbacks this, and we receive updates daily. With that, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you. You didn't have updates from your staff people.
Two of them are in Albany for training, so that's why we have a limited team, but I'll let Laura give some updates.
Sure.
Do you have any?
Sure.
It was a break last week, so maybe not.
Yeah, we are, continuing work on technology. I had my second meeting today with some representatives from the middle school staff regarding their decisions for their technology next year. Really looking into, it's a little bit different now that we're moving from elementary to middle school. How kids are going, what kind of technology is going to support the learning in those classes. As we get to that secondary level, it's changing a little bit. So just really trying to get feedback from the staff, trying to also be cost effective in what we purchase and how we allocate equipment. So it looks like the majority of the building is looking to go one-to-one with Chromebooks. At the same time, looking for some higher level equipment for Project Lead the Way. So trying to plan for that. And then it's budget season, so I'm just in constant contact with all of our contractors and working on contracts and still continuing trying to forge ahead with Ed Law 2D, which goes into effect July 1st. So trying to make sure that we're in compliance with that by that date and time. And then with human resources, day to day, hiring people, maternity leaves, all good things. So just trying to support everybody.
Okay.
That brings us to our committee reports. I'm sorry. Do we want to do committee reports now, or do we want to push those to and do presentations? Do you care? Let's go on with our presentations.
Okay. So our first presentation before we get into budget is census time. So joining us is Dr. Borda, who is working with the Regional Census Center.
So Census Day is nearly here. It's April 1st. However, we start the census before April 1st. We actually start March 12th, which is right around the corner. And so what's important to know are really 5 things to remember. First is that the census is interested in counting everyone once and in the right place. The census doesn't care where you're from. We don't care how many people are living in your residence that are legal or illegal. We need to know who's being counted and why is that important, and I'll cover it again later, but I want to have you keep this in mind. A complete count means, for the next 10 years, places like Hendrick Hudson High School and Hendrick Hudson School District will be able to use census numbers to get their fair share of federal and state dollars, because all grants that are written are based upon census data. And if we have an undercount now, for the next 10 years, consistently you will get less than your fair share. This is very important to people. The second is that it's our representation in Washington and in the state legislature and in the county legislature. So keep that in mind as we go forward. I don't know which button I used. There you go. So our commercial, yes, we're the largest statistical agency. Yes, we do the decennial census every 10 years. It is an absolute count. There's no fudge factor. It's not a sampled survey like the American Community Survey, which is only 300,000 surveys a month. So if we don't count, we can't go back to a community, which is what happened 10 years ago in Westchester. Several communities were undercounted and go, we'd like a fudge factor of 6%. It doesn't happen that way. This is a hard, real count in time. So just in case you're worried, you may actually be in a census survey from some previous time or place. And the census, if you're suspecting fraud, you can call this 800 number or hang up and call your police. What's fraud for census? If somebody calls you and says, hi, we know it's census season and the census is going to be very confusing to fill out. Well, give me $500 and I'll send out the census for you. That's fraud. If somebody picks up the phone and says, I'm from the Census Bureau, but to fill out your census, I need to know your social security number, your bank account, your immigration number, your any of that information, you hang up the phone and you call the police. That is illegal. Somebody calls from the census or knocks on your door and says, hi, I'm with the census, but in order to fill out the census, you have to make a donation to thus and such charity or a political party. You hang up the phone, you slam the door, and you call the police. All of those things are illegal. There's only one way to do the census, and I'm going to tell you how that is done. Anybody who comes to your door that's from a census has to have an identifying badge and other material that demonstrates that they are from the census. We know fraud is already around. I did a presentation last week, and 3 of the people from the audience brought me up these strange-looking flyers that said they had to fill out their census for the XYZ organization. Not right. And they asked a lot of personal questions. So when the first census was done, it was about 300,000 white men. That's all we counted in the 1700s, right? It was done by Thomas Jefferson and people rode horseback. Now we're up to 300 million people in the U.S. That is a dramatic change with over 140 million housing units. This is a huge undertaking. We're deploying more people in this census than has ever been deployed in peacetime in the United States. It's mandated by the Constitution in Article 1. We have to do this every 10 years, and it represents your funding and your representation. So the census, key words, safe, easy, and important. I said already the seats in the House of Representatives, the state legislative districts, and it funds all kinds of things in addition to school districts. It funds your after-school program. It funds fixing the roads. It funds your fire department. It helps to fund the ambulance corps. It funds Medicaid. It funds everything comes out of the census. So we really need everyone to be counted. It's safe. So the census never publishes any information except after 72 years, that's 3 generations, we can now turn our data over for public consumption. So when you go on Ancestry.com and you try to find out when your great-grandmother came to the U.S., what the census information was, you'll be able to find it. But you're not going to be able to find out what happened 10 years ago because that's locked away. All that this data is used for is statistical purposes, and no one can get access to it. By order of the Supreme Court, under Article 13 of the federal statutes, this material is 100% confidential. It's identified and used only for statistical purposes. Census Bureau employees are sworn to not report anything or talk about anything they hear on their job for their lifetime, not just the lifetime of their employment, but forever. So let's say we go to a house and we knock on a door and we find someone who's lying there on the floor having an overdose. Very dramatic example. We cannot call 911. We cannot talk to the neighbors. We keep our mouths shut and we count how many people are in the room. Why do we take that drastic measure? Because we don't want anyone in a neighborhood to feel that they cannot trust us with the going to the door. If you live in a community and one person's confidentiality is violated, you are absolutely unable to go on forward. So this is a moral conundrum for some people, and we know that, but it is how it operates because we want people to 100% trust that we cannot and will not share information.
We'll let you die, but
I know.
Does that person get counted?
do they get counted?
If they're there. So, there are 4 ways to respond to the census. And it's different this year. You're not going to get a mailing with a census flyer. You're going to get a mailing on the week of March 12th that comes to your address that gives you a 12-digit code. And you're going to use that code to either go online to answer online, to pick up your phone and call and make an oral report. You're going to keep getting these invitations over and over again until finally we hope you will go online. Then finally by the end of April, if you haven't answered online or by phone, people will come knock on your door. We do not want to go out knocking on people's doors. It's A, expensive, and B, not productive because people don't want to open their door. They are afraid, people are nervous, and we know that we can create opportunities for people to be online to answer the census. We ask 9 questions. We ask your name, age, date of birth, race and origin, Hispanic, your relationship, your gender, how long you've lived in that place, and things like, do you own your home or do you rent, which are basic demographic information. We will never again ask you for your social security number, any donations, say anything on a political party, or ask for your bank account or credit card numbers. And if you can see it, that is what the census questionnaire looks like. This time for the census, in addition, we've tried to break down as many barriers as possible. You can fill out your census in any 12 languages. So here are the 12 languages that are most popular in the US. These are 99% of the languages spoken. You can get your census form online or on phone when you talk to a person in a native speaker to these languages. But in addition, you can complete your census on phone. When you get your letter, you're going to have these phone numbers. You can speak to a live customer service representative that speaks your native language. So if you're here from Poland and you don't speak English well, you can pick up the phone and speak to someone in Polish. Spanish is the language we think of most often for immigrants in our area, but there are a number of other language groups in our community that have language barriers, and we want them to feel comfortable filling out the census. We have, in addition, 59 other non-language guides to help people map from the reading material to answering the census in their native language. So this is extremely important to us. We also provide information in Braille and with technology-assisted learning for people who have other kinds of disabilities. March 12th through the 20th, you're going to get an invitation from us. It's a letter that says all that you've just seen and your 12-digit code number. You hopefully will go right to your computer, answer it, and you'll never hear from us again because your name will be automatically taken off our list. If you're recalcitrant, on March 16th, you're going to get another letter from us that says, hey, we already wrote to you. What did you do with your letter? Please answer the census. If you're like me, you've probably thrown it away twice in the mail and never even looked at it. So the third time, we give you another reminder postcard that says, hey, go back and do the census now. It's important. In mid-April, around April 8th, we're going to mail out another letter with a paper ballot. It's the first and only paper ballot you will receive to fill out your census. And then if you haven't done that, we know that people are going to be reluctant to do all of those things. We are going to have enumerators in the field doing census the old-fashioned way, knocking on doors and hoping people will respond to us. So we want you to help us, right? We want you to help us by sharing this message with everyone you know and by promoting the census jobs. That's something I didn't talk about yet. The census is hiring thousands of people, 6,000 people in Westchester and Putnam alone to do this enumeration. We're paying $21 to $23 an hour. It's easy. Yeah, you get paid once a week. You have a short training session. You work your hours after school, in the evening, and on weekends to be at the door when people are at home. So we have a website with all kinds of information on it, which is all you'll be able to find on the website 2020census.gov. So one of the important things that's coming up next week, and here we are at a school, is Statistics in Our Schools Week. Knowing that in New York State that this is a time for state testing, we know this is a difficult week in New York. But what's important is that we would ask your school district to just send a notice home with every kid that says, please watch for this mailing, don't throw it away, pay attention. In addition, you have in your folders additional information about statistics in our schools, which is, I can't believe how much stuff they created based upon the standards that's available from early elementary school right up through high school for use. And everything is there, it's all free, and you can teach geography, social studies, statistics, just about everything. There's songs, there's videos, all kinds of things. Self-response starts on the 12th. We have mobile questionnaire assistants going live in March. Those are people from the Census Bureau that will come out to a community to help them answer their census. And then at the last weekend in March, we're hoping to engage all the communities of faith in a conference or in some way in an activity that promotes the census. Locally, the library is going to be a census hub. It's a place for people who don't want to answer the census on their computer at home. People who don't want to use their own telephone, they're nervous, they don't know how to use a computer, they feel uneasy. All sorts of reasons people don't want to do this in their place. We have the library people are here, ready to help, supported by Lisa's here, to really help make this work. This is all about making it work. So my short presentation, I don't know, I guess, will this YouTube video play? You think probably not?
I don't, yeah.
I can try it.
Okay, how do I do that?
There we go.
I hit the right button. Oh, he makes it here.
The online questionnaire is available in English and 12 non-English languages. To select a language, click on the globe icon and select the name of the language, or select the name of the language at the bottom of any screen. This video will show a step-by-step demonstration. Keep watching. You will need to complete the 2020 census in one session. If you leave, you will have to start over. To begin, choose Start Questionnaire. First, enter your 12-digit census ID. If you do not have a census ID, select the link below the login button and answer some additional questions about your address. You will still be able to respond. Then, confirm that you are completing the 2020 census questionnaire for the address shown. Select yes or no. If you will be staying at this address on April 1st, choose yes. Otherwise, choose no. The next button takes you forward, and the previous button takes you back. Do not use the forward or back buttons on your browser, or else you may need to start over. Next, enter your name and telephone number. Enter your full name. Sometimes a message may appear on the screen that asks you to check your response, or enter additional information. Review what you entered before selecting the next button. Enter the number of people, including yourself, who will be living or staying at this address on April 1st, 2020. Click on the underlined blue links for help with the questions. Make sure that you count people where they usually live and sleep. If someone does not have a usual residence, count them where they will be staying on April 1st. Include babies and children of all ages, close or extended family members, people who are not related to you, and people staying here without a permanent place to live. Do not include anyone who lives away from this address most of the year, such as college students, armed forces personnel, people in a nursing home, mental hospital, jail, prison, detention center, etc., or people visiting who usually live and sleep somewhere else. These people will be counted in other ways. Then, list the name of each person living or staying at this address. To add more people, select the button labeled Add Another Person. We do not want to miss any people staying at this address on April 1st. If you forgot to include anyone who stays here, choose Yes and enter those names. Otherwise, choose No. Now you're ready for the next two questions about the home at this address. On April 1st, will a house, apartment, or mobile home at this address be owned by you or someone in this household with a mortgage or loan, including home equity loans, owned by you or someone in this household free and clear without a mortgage or loan, rented, or occupied without payment of rent? Then, select the names of the owners or renters of this house, apartment, or mobile home. Next, we ask some questions about each person you listed earlier. First, we ask if the person is male or female. We also ask you to enter the month, day, and year this person was born. Make sure that the age that appears is correct as of April 1st, 2020. Next, we ask about Hispanic origin and race. Please answer both this and the next question. Select whether this person is not of Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin, Mexican, Mexican-American, or Chicano, Puerto Rican, Cuban, or another Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin. If you selected the last response, enter more details in the box below. Next, we ask about race. Select one or more checkboxes. White, Black or African American, American Indian or Alaska Native, Chinese, Filipino, Asian Indian, Vietnamese, Korean, Japanese, other Asian, Native Hawaiian, Samoan, Chamorro, other Pacific Islander, or some other race. Enter detailed origins in the boxes that look like this. Additional people will also see this question. How is this person related to the reference person? Select opposite sex husband, wife, or spouse, opposite sex unmarried partner, same sex husband, wife, or spouse, same sex unmarried partner, biological son or daughter, adopted son or daughter, stepson or stepdaughter, brother or sister, father or mother, grandchild, parent-in-law, son-in-law or daughter-in-law, other relative, roommate or housemate, foster child, or other non-relative. We're almost finished. Some people live or stay in more than one place, and we need to make sure everyone is only counted once. Select the name of anyone who usually lives or stays somewhere else. Otherwise, choose none of the above. If a person does usually live or stay somewhere else, select the reason why from the following. To be with a parent, grandparent, or other person, to attend college, for a military assignment, to be closer to a job or business, in a nursing home or group home, in a jail or prison, at a seasonal or second residence, or for another reason. Great job. You are now ready to send your responses. Select Submit Questionnaire to complete the 2020 census. You will see a confirmation page with your address and today's date. That's it. You have completed the 2020 census online. Thank you. You may now close the web browser.
So the whole video is 6 minutes and 11 seconds. We think that it takes less than 5 minutes to answer the census for each person. So count each person once in the place where they are. Totally confidential, 100% safe. On the phone, by computer, are the two primary ways we want you to answer. Please work for us. $21 to $23 an hour. And a complete count means money for your community and your representatives. I'm glad to come talk anywhere. You all have my card, and thank you for having me. Yes?
Is there a minimum age for the jobs? Could our
It's
seniors
18 and a
students-
driver's license.
So do you have to have a high school diploma? Could
No.
our seniors? Okay.
Anyone
We're
who-
also going house to house, so you don't know if you
Yes, it depends on what job it is that you're doing.
There are some job knockers, there's some door knockers. Some people are going to be carrying around iPads collecting information. I mean, helping people fill out the census with iPads. Other people are working in the back office. There's a lot of jobs. And we want you to be working in your neighborhood. So we don't want you to be leaving from Montrose or Buchanan and be working in White Plains, for example. We want to hire enough people in each community that it's very local, because we know people in your community trust you. They know your face. They don't trust me. They don't know my face. Another question?
So Elise came and met with us the Friday before break with the 6 PTAs and handed out a bunch of information, and they're going to help advocate. We have a bunch of resources too to send home with kids next week and to publicize on our website. This is very, very important for many, many reasons, but especially school districts and our community to be represented. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Look forward to being a partner.
Thank
Glad
you.
to be here.
Safe home.
Okay, Liz Gilio is going to walk us through the budget presentation for transportation.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi,
Members of the
Liz.
board, Mr. Hochreiter.
It's right there.
We're over here.
So I continue to work on reducing some of my spending. We reduced overtime for sports. We reduced spending without losing the quality of service. We still want to be able to provide the same service that we do, but just with a little more efficiently. We continue to work on our routes to make them more efficient and to better serve the residents of the community. And we also continue to use the shared services model. We've joined with Peekskill Schools, Peekskill, Croton, Lakeland, Putnam Valley, Yorktown, and this year we added Pocanico Hills in with us also, and Ossining. And we do that to share some of the expenses of bringing our students to out-of-district programs. So our drivers still continue to receive their annual training on EpiPen administration. We have the school nurse from Buchanan Pine School come and to the February refresher, and she gives them EpiPen admin certification. We also talk about diabetic emergencies and what to do, and also seizure disorders. This year we had our representatives from Alteris come, and we worked with the drivers and custodians on what to do in case of a violent event or a fight on the bus. We let them brainstorm and come up with how they would deal with it. Who do they contact? What do they do as the driver? What do they do to protect the other children on the bus? What happens if you're not in a great place to pull over? What are you going to do? All right, and that went really well. We thought that they, really, it makes them think. We hope that we don't have those type of incidents happen on the bus, but it's the nature of the beast. All right, and so at least they feel a little bit more prepared in order to, deal with those situations should they arise. Okay, so this year we received delivery on 2 72-passenger Bluebird Transit-style buses. So those are the buses with the flat front. Okay, we also received delivery on 2 28-passenger vans. And we also received delivery on a 2019 Jeep, and that's used by the security department. I don't know if it's outside tonight because he did have it earlier today, and he was up at the game with it. Okay, going forward for the 2021, I'd like to purchase 3 20-passenger single-wheeled vans, and we're going to be replacing the vans that are listed. As you can see, they all have high mileage on them. To use them every single day, it's starting to be that they're starting to spend a lot of time in the garage being repaired. So we feel that this is really the best way for us to go. And 1 72-passenger transit-style bus. We also would like to purchase 1 utility vehicle for use at the schools, and that's, they commonly call them the Gator. That's really a brand name, so we really can't use that name, but that's what that utility vehicle is. It's not it's not an off-road vehicle. It's something that they would use for maintenance on the fields and moving, their field maintenance equipment from place to place. And the approximate cost to replace those vehicles is $325,000. So as we look at the budget going forward, you can see in my first line, that's, so this is for the chauffeurs, for the van drivers. It's an increase of $46,708, which is a 3.2% increase. For non-instructional, also for the chauffeurs, we have an increase of $10,229 with a 2% increase. The chauffeurs, for the handicap vans, that's an increase of $27,783. That increase is a little bit more because we use those chauffeurs to help with the children that are involved in the Sailor program. They're doing a lot of community employment opportunities, so we're taking them to the beach shopping center to work over at Stop and Shop. They're also going to other different facilities like that in the area. A lot of those kids need to have monitors with them or co-chauffeurs with them, and because of that, that's why that's a little bit higher. Okay, non-instructional overtime. I didn't increase that line at all. Left it the same. Field trips also stayed the same. And then in sports overtime, we reduced that by $4,000. So it's a minus 3.9%. Okay, my equipment line, I reduced that by $35,000. Contractual expenditures stay the same. Materials and supplies also stay this, reduce that by $5,000. Okay, gas and diesel, that line has pretty much stayed the same for the past few years. Kind of watching the fuel prices. They're, as we all know, in the as the summer months come, they go higher, but we obviously don't bus as much in the summer, so we're okay. And then in the winter, we go up a little bit more because we have to add, and we have additive that goes into the fuel so it doesn't, so that the diesel doesn't gel. Okay, lubrication and oil stays the same, and then tires and chains, we reduce that by $500. Our insurance has gone up a little bit, so we have those increases. One of $2,021, and the other one of $1,019. And down at the bus garage, for equipment, we reduced that by $5,000. Our contractual expenditures, we left those the same. That has to do with the things that they are using in the garage that we have to deliver there by different vendors. Okay, and then we have our natural gas, which is the same. Water, electricity moved down a little bit. And then we have our liability insurance there. And then our materials and supplies for the bus garage. So an overall increase in my budget of $37,865, which comes out to be 1.05%.
Are there any questions?
I was just wondering if you could give us an update on the stop arm cameras that we were talking about earlier for the buses.
Well, we're still, it's still a work in progress. There's, a lot going on with that, and there's been a lot of, a lot of movement with, with some vendors and such. So we're just still, waiting to see how that's all going to pan out. It's, it's like I had said to you when we talked about it last year. It's just the way the law is written is just so convoluted. It really wasn't designed to really be successful, unfortunately. So at NIAP, which is the State Association for New York Pupil Transportation, we're working really hard with our new government advocate that we have to try to see if we can get that law changed a little bit. Because right now it's as if you're going through a red light of a traffic light. It's not, we feel that, it's the risk of a child being hit by a car. And we want to try to make sure we save as many kids from that ever happening. So. But it is a law now that they have to have that in driver's ed. That's one of the things that they must cover in the driver ed program. So hopefully that will, help also to educate the kids in New York State as to what they're supposed to do.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, anything remaining to give an overview of facilities and maintenance?
Good evening, everyone. I'm here to present the facilities operation maintenance budget for proposed budget for 2020-2021. I usually like to talk about our budget drivers, which are usually focused around utilities, because those are the things that we don't have much control of, to a certain degree. For electric, we use a host of different vendors. We're using NYPA. We have our solar through our power purchase agreement. We use Con Edison for the ball field lights. We anticipate our cost increase a little bit, about 2% going forward. We expended about $25,000 so far for NYPA, about 7 months through or so. Utility budget for 2020-2021, we ran approximately $563,000 total, and the breakdown is solar 120, NYPA about 353, and Con Edison about 90. That fluctuates a little bit back and forth, but it all washes back out again. Over this past summer, the district invested in some more LED lighting within the exterior of the high school. We're around the whole building, got rid of all the old types of lights that were just not functioning or just weren't efficient, and we went to an LED provider, and they did all that up there, so we enhanced that up there, so that'll help out a long way. Some solar data. The 5 buildings are producing solar power. Solar power accounts for about 40% of the district's needs. Produced about 3,245 megawatt hours since we started back in 2016. The last I thought was kind of an interesting fact, and we didn't really see this until you go through a couple of different iterations of years, because in the beginning we were waning off it. But at Furnace Woods, we run completely on solar during the peak months, so April through December, with optimal, conditions and everything, we're basically running that building on solar. So my NYPA bill it's not a total zero because we still have demand costs that go along with it, but it's basically we're not using really any power, and it's all shifted over to the solar side of it. For Plank, we have another big array there, and June through October, depending on the conditions and things like that, those buildings are zeros over there too. So it's not always work out that way. We might have a rainy month or something like that, and we get a little bit of fluctuation in there. But that's what I'm seeing in the trends of my bills, so far. Fuel oil, we purchased that off state contract. Cost per gallon has increased.
That's a question on the previous slide.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're talking about, okay, it's all, significant amount provided by solar power, but yet you have a cost for solar power of 120. What is the cost for the solar?
Remember,
We still pay them to provide, so we have a PPA with them, power purchase agreement. So those solar panels are producing energy, and we pay the purveyor of that solar. So Terraform, which is the contractor who now oversees that, instead of paying NYPA, we pay Terraform for our power.
Okay, so we don't own the solar power.
No, it's a lease thing, it's a power purchase agreement through them. And one of the reasons why we went through the solar iteration is because the solar is more of a flat line number, whereas through NYPA, they can increase or decrease the number depending on what's going on around the world. So if gas prices spike, a couple of years ago we had a polar vortex, they called it, and gas prices all jumped up. So 1 month, let's just say my electrical bill was $35,000, it's roughly about $35,000. The next month, because they did a correction, my bill went to $70,000 for electric, because they needed to correct based on them paying higher prices for gas to run the turbines to provide electrical power.
Is there any point where we own the solar panels and it becomes a total win-win?
At the end of it, we have the...
How long is at the end?
18 years.
Okay, so it's a long time.
Right, correct. We did it basically... You're not going to really want to buy it at the end of 18 years because the technology is going to be outdated. But the reason why we did is to hedge our bet, to keep that like the flattest number we could instead of seeing these peaks and valleys going back and forth.
Okay.
And with current things with Indian Point, who knows where the prices are going to go, and et cetera. So
thank you.
Were you going to say something?
No. I answered it. Again, so Oil prices by off-state contract, last year's about 2.2, this year's about 2.05, so it's roughly about the same. And then that fluctuates, like Liz alluded to before, during the course of the year. We see peaks and valleys too. You know, I'll see lower prices, or if I see a lower price, when I'm watching it, we'll buy more oil, stock up the tanks, buy through the other months that maybe it might be a little bit higher, and then we try to go in back and forth with that just to help out with that. Fuel saving measures implemented over the years. Boilers run on economizers. We turn down the boilers during the breaks. Weekends, holidays, etc. We watch for forecasts and plan accordingly. We've done some infrastructure upgrades with some doors and different things like that, so we don't have the same sort of infiltration coming into the buildings. And our head custodians control a lot of that through the building management system. So they go on every day, they see what's going on, temperatures are on in the rooms, and if the rooms are still a little bit high, they may decrease the boilers or shut them off totally and just coast through the rest of the afternoon of that day, or they'll have to turn them on depending if it's too cold. So we kind of keep an eye on that so we can watch what's going on. Propane, we buy that off the state contract. It's decreased a little bit from last year at this time. Budget for propane, we're saying it's going to decrease again next year. Natural gas we get from Con Edison. Gas usage is about the same as last year. Slightly higher than last year. Expected to increase again next year. But again, we watch. We're using that for our boilers and things like that. So we watch that and we try to coast and cut that back and forth as we go. Right, so some of the numbers, salaries went up a little bit, about 4%. Equipment, we did a reduction there of $2,000. Contractual service, we kept the same. Insurances went up 5% for general liability, auto, and fire, I believe. Maintenance contracts, we kept the same. Professional services, we dropped $20,000. That's because some of the things that were not required of us in this year, but will be required in the years going, after. So we'll have to jump it back up again. Materials and supplies, we kept that the same at $280,000. Oil, we dropped that a little bit. Again, prices went up, but we think the way that we're doing things and we're watching things and being very fuel conscious, we think we'll be okay. Electric and gas, we kept that about the same because that number just fluctuates a little. Municipal water, kept that the same. Telephone, we dropped that a little bit, only slightly. Gas propane, again, we dropped that a little. Maintenance projects, we dropped that about $5,000. And our total budget is an increase of about $73,000 or 1.57% increase overall.
Any questions?
You had mentioned that you put in more LED lighting outside of the high school. Where do we stand district-wide with switching over to LED?
So
I understand there's a huge savings
so
utilizing LED
so
lighting.
We're actually, Joe and I have been looking into doing possibly another EPC, Energy Performance Contract. And if you remember, we did one about several years back in 09, which is 10 years, 11 years already now. So we did one in 09, and we jumped from T12 lighting to T8 lighting, which is the fluorescent bulbs that are in here. And when we jumped from T12, which is larger size, to the T8s, we saved a lot of electricity doing that. So we are pursuing jumping from the T8s now to LEDs because it's become cost effective to do that.
So we put out an RFP in the fall, maybe in the summer, to identify companies that are state ed approved that do this work. We had a couple. I know of one that came and actually did a tour of the facility to identify where we may have cost savings, and they're developing that plan.
So we're looking to do the same thing. And that would, interestingly enough, that would drop. So our electric would drop into maybe some of those other buildings, and then those would net down to zero. So you would see, again, but you do a lot of these things through funding through the EPC, so you're still on the ticket with the people from the EPC. So, you're paying through one source to get another, but the EPC works because the value outweighs, what you're putting into it. So we're looking at all those different things. And with the EPC, there might be some other cost-saving measures as well. So they're not only looking at lighting, they're looking at, every avenue. Is there something more that we can do to enhance, even though we did it years ago, but there might be new technology for the boilers, there might be new technology for windows, there might be new technology for doors. where we can, recoup even more costs. So they look at the whole package, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, water usage. They even look at water usage as a way to, economize our water. So if we're using, water in bathrooms, if we're using an exuberant amount, in the district, in the school, is there a way to put some cost-saving fixtures in so we can lower that as well? So they look at the whole picture.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so now we're going to loop back around to committee reports. I know that Lisa has at least one committee report because we spoke about it earlier. Does anybody else have committee reports tonight?
You're doing the facilities one, right?
No, because that was earlier. I did it before.
That's the last time.
I did it.
No, I thought we were gonna, okay.
Oh.
That was if we had our meeting?
Right.
Okay.
And we didn't.
Okay.
Did you have one? You raised your hand.
Yeah, I participated in the technology committee, but I think Laura pretty much
Summed it up.
covered that already.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Bill, for attending that. All right, Lisa?
Westchester Putnam School Board Association had a School Smart Time workshop that I attended. They were addressing the start times for schools across the region. And they had a clinical psychologist from the Albert Einstein School of Medicine who specializes in behavioral sleep medicine. And she spoke on the evidence of the effects of sleep on adolescents. And it's almost biologically impossible for the average adolescent to fall asleep before 11 p.m. Just interesting. So anyway, she covered a whole lot of different stats and science behind that and the reasons why. And then we had superintendent from Dobbs Ferry and superintendent from Crotona Lewisboro who have both switched to later start times for their schools. And they shared their process, what they've gone through to do that, and they shared their, lessons learned, their experiences, all that kind of thing. Putnam Valley also, their high school principal was there, and they made the change about 2 years ago as well.
Did they say how much they changed it by, or?
I have that down somewhere.
Okay, if you don't.
I think it was about 30 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes for each of them.
Did they say it was making a difference?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it absolutely was. I mean, the kids were not zombie-ish when they were there first period in the morning, and the scores were better in class. Yeah.
I find it hard to believe a half hour makes that difference.
It does, though. I mean, the research. Well, we can talk about it another time. But yeah, no, it's interesting. Even a half hour makes a huge difference, according to Dr. Harris, who was the psychologist that was there. I also went to the safety meeting that we had, where we discussed lessons learned from safety-related incidents at other schools. As Liz mentioned, there was the safety training for the bus drivers through Alteris, our safety consultant company that we have. Talked about threat assessment training, fire inspections. The phase 2 of the bond bids, the due date was extended. So that's why we're going to be looking at those approvals later in March. And still working on the details of the anonymous incident reporting system, but getting closer to being able to move forward with that. And then the last one I attended was the Blue Mountain Middle School PTA meeting on Monday night, and there was discussion about field trips and enrichment activities. The other thing that's coming up for them is they've got Basketball Madness fundraiser on March 13th for middle school students. From 7:30 to 9 p.m. in the middle school gym, and that should be a lot of fun. And then,
what are they raising money for? Is it just for middle school activities?
I think
or is
so.
It something?
It's a middle school fundraiser for the school and for the activities and things that they do.
Thank you very much for that update. I know that the school start time thing is something that all of us have been very interested in and kind of keeping an eye on, and
For a long time.
For a long time, and at some point in hopefully the not too distant future, we have a lot on our plate right now, but I think there are quite a few of us that would like to discuss this a little bit more in depth, so hopefully that will be coming up sometime within the next year. And that's it for committee reports. I don't think I have a committee report. So our next section is another audience comment section for the public to speak about agenda items. And we don't have anybody signed up this evening. So our last section would be board comments or new business. Lisa had mentioned a couple of events that are happening in the district. Anybody know of any events happening? Oh, live! I am so sorry. This is the second meeting I have forgotten to mention live. Live is coming up this Saturday. It's
The factory,
right?
Factoria.
The Factoria. I thought you were going to correct the date. I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure it's
No,
this
you're,
Saturday.
you're right. I'm looking to see. There are about 10 tickets left.
And it's the 10th anniversary of Live, so they'll be honoring some of the committee that originally started this event. It should be a very nice evening. I've gone for 9 years, so it's always a really nice night. But hopefully we'll sell out those last 10 tickets, and everybody who is going, have a great time.
A lot of fun.
All right, so if I can have a motion to end the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much for coming out this evening.